everyone and welcome back to my channel. So today it is going to be a slightly different video for you guys. As you've probably seen, the times when I'm on my couch is normally the time when I actually want to talk to you guys about something. And seeing as we're coming into the holiday season and you know everybody's out there shopping for their loved ones and their friends and their family, I thought it was only fitting to do a bit more of a slightly serious video and just let you know some of the things that have gone on in my life in the past that has made me not quite like Christmas at certain points in my life, to a point where I have not wanted to be around. So it's going to be a slightly different video, this one. If you think that this is probably going to touch on something that is going to be a bit too emotional for you guys, then I would probably say don't watch it, but do feel free to watch it if you maybe suffer from anxiety, depression, you want to know a little bit more about somebody else's story, for example my story. So that's where we're going to be going today. So a lot of people who know me don't know that I actually do suffer and have been diagnosed from my doctor with anxiety and at my worst depression as well. It was a time in my life where I felt completely at hold by how I felt and I didn't feel like I fit in with the world. It was a very, very dark time for me, let me just put it like that. It was a few years ago when I actually was diagnosed with anxiety and depression, both at exactly the same time. In those days they didn't like calling depression, they actually called it a low mood. So on my sick notes that I actually had from work, it says anxiety and low mood. I was put on so many different medications for them to try and figure something out to help me get back into a normal kind of daily routine, to help me get back into work. But let's just rewind a little bit and I will just tell you a bit more about the backstory as to why I was actually diagnosed. So for those that know me, a few years ago, it was a good few years ago, I actually moved down to Hertfordshire. I met someone, I moved down there hoping to build a life down there. I met loads of new people, so you know I'm still in touch with those guys down there, so hello from me. And you know, I thought my life was going to be amazing. I thought I would have this great, fantastic life down there, loads of new friends, but it actually ended up falling to pieces. I mean, I'm not going to go into what actually happened in that relationship. Some of it is related to how I fell into my anxiety and depression, but that video I'll probably do at another time for you guys, so it'll probably be next year sometime. But I ended up having a job that it changed over the time that I was there, and it got to a point where I hated going to work. Like literally, I was crying in the shower, I would cry when I got home, I would cry on my lunch break. It was not mentally healthy for me to be at that job. So me being me, I didn't want to leave the job. I stayed strong. You know, I needed the money, I needed to pay the rent because I was the only person that would pay that rent. And I stayed. And I stayed and I stayed and I stayed until at one point on my lunch break I thought, I am going to go for a walk. I need to get out of the office, I need to go for a walk. And I found myself at the train station. Now at this point in my life I didn't realise I had any sort of mental illness. I just thought I was sad because I didn't like my job. But in order for me to walk the 40 minutes from my office to the train station, because I got the train at the time, and that 40 minutes just gone, it was really quite scary for me. I mean, I was very, very lucky that when I got to the train station, I had already been applying for jobs because I'm quite a proactive person, and I knew a month or so before that this is not for me anymore. I was very, very lucky that I got a phone call at the train station, and it was the manager of a retail store that I had applied for, and he said, I want you to come for an interview, really, really excited to meet you. You seem like the kind of person that I really, really want working underneath me, because it was for an assistant manager's job. And I was really excited, it really elated me. You know, roll on a few months later and there's me in a full-time job working in the store, absolutely loving it. But then, as we kind of move along the storyline, there was a lot of things, a lot of money worries, a lot of issues in regards to sort of my housing and credit and this, that and the other, which is a bit of a different story. And I ended up moving into a very, very small property. Literally, it was, if you'd taken a wall down, it would have been a studio apartment, and for 2 people to live in, it was horrendous. I don't know, if you guys live in a studio apartment or a 1-bed and you're a couple, fair play to you, because I could not do that. That really, really put a strain on my mental health. And even though I tried to cope with it, living in such a small space with somebody who didn't really want to live with you, let's just put that out there, did not want to live with you, was really, really stressful. And this person not wanting to help pay for things and, you know, basically get out there and, you know, get onto the grindstone, as it were, so that I can actually afford to pay for the place. But I actually ended up leaving my retail job and I found another job. I was really, really interested in marketing at the time, and so I thought, do you know what, I'm really going to make a go of this. And I got out there and I ended up doing a lot of marketing for another business, and I learned Photoshop. I learned everything that I possibly could so that I could be the best designer and marketer that you could possibly find. And I didn't go to university. I did online courses so that I could have something to show when I went for an interview, and I managed to score a marketing assistant role at a solicitor's, and I was so happy. It was only part-time, but it gave me the sort of business insights that I needed. It gave me the contacts that I needed for something else that was going on kind of in the background as well. So it was absolutely brilliant for me to actually get this job. It was worth so much to me, and I learned so much while I was there. But unfortunately, because of what was going on at home, I ended up suffering every time I was at home. So I would go out to work in the morning, my car that I'd had, my Camaro that I'd had, needed work on it, and when I was living in my larger apartment, I was slowly building up the money to get that fixed. But then money aspects and the fact that I needed to pay for everything on my own meant that all of my savings went into the house, onto bills, and I could no longer afford to get the work done on my car that I needed to get done, hence why I took the train everywhere. And so that left me without a car, pretty much. I ended up having a very, very cheap runaround sort of in between sort of being at the retail place and also then working at solicitors. But then because I was at the solicitors, I sold the car because I needed to be able to live. I needed a roof over my head, and that was so important to me. And I thought, do you know what, I can walk the 40 minutes to work. That's fine, I can walk, that's absolutely fine. So that's what I did. But ever so slowly, my freedom started to disappear. So I'd always had a car since I'd passed my test, and my car had gone. And I had room in the apartment when 2 people were paying for it, and then we moved somewhere smaller, and my space had gone. My personal space had gone. And I'm one of those people that I do need to take time out for myself, and not having the personal space really messes with my mind. I don't know if you guys are like that, but I have to have my personal space. I have to be able to go somewhere, sit down and just take a few minutes, which is why I've got this lovely studio room here, and that's why I've got everything here that I need to be able to spend some time with me. But anyway, I'm going off on a tangent. So what actually happened was I was working part-time at solicitors. I was doing extra days if I was needed. I was doing events. Some days I would be up at 5:30 in the morning to get to work, and I would probably be home about 9 o'clock at night. And then when I got home, because there was a business venture and stuff going on in the background that the person I was living with wanted to do that wasn't making any money, and they had no clue of how to market it, I was then getting home, sitting down, possibly having a cup of tea or a cup of coffee, and then I was working again probably until midnight. And this had drastic effects on me as a person, to a point where I couldn't cope anymore. But that's when I realised there was something wrong. I was constantly tired, I was constantly in tears, I was always upset, I could barely afford to make rent, barely afford my bills, and I was also putting fuel and paying for tax and insurance in somebody else's car as well that I wasn't allowed to use. So that is all a completely different video which will come next year. I'll talk to you about that because that is a massive, massive deal, and I think I do need to talk about what happened. But with all that going on, I felt like I couldn't go into work anymore. It sounds so like simple, and it's like, oh, but it's only work. But I completely burnt out. So I went to the doctor and I spoke to the doctor about everything that was going on and said that I don't feel like me anymore. I'm getting upset over very small things. I don't want to go and see my friends anymore. I can't get out of bed to go to work anymore. I go to the front door and I get heart palpitations and a racing heart, and just the thought of speaking to people that I don't know had a massive, massive effect on me and really made me very anxious. And that was the first time I got a slip to say, you're not to be in work and here's some antidepressants because you have low mood and anxiety. And that really hit me. I thought that I would never be one of those people that would ever be diagnosed with something like that. I mean, you look at me, you look at all my other videos, and all of my friends will say, you are the happiest, lovely person that we have met, and you're always cheerful, you've always got a smile on your face, you always make jokes, you're very witty. But let me just tell you, that is a cover-up for how I feel on the inside sometimes. Sometimes I feel like I need to have a laugh and I need to make jokes because I need to cover up what's going on in here and I need to feel okay. And I think a lot of people, especially around this time of year, do that. I'm not the only person that does that, and I know I'm not. And I think it really needs to be addressed how serious, and I don't want to say mental disorders, even though they are classed as a mental disorder, but how serious anxiety and depression is, especially getting to this time of year. I remember November 2015, the very end of November 2015, I remember not being very happy. I was still out of work and I snapped, and I actually said to the person I was living with, you please help me. You need to find a job. I cannot do all of this on my own. Please help me. And he got up and he got his keys and he walked out the door. That was it. No word of nothing. Just disappeared. And for me, on my medication, I was shaking. I'm shaking a little bit now talking about all of this. But I was shaking. I was in tears. I didn't know what was going on. I had my phone on me and I was phoning them and phoning them. And my brain did not compute what had happened. And for everything that I was going through and having been diagnosed with what I'd been diagnosed, I'd almost completely gone off the rails, I will say that. I never got to a point where I went out and I was just going absolutely crazy with everything, but I felt like I was dying a little bit inside, which sounds really strange, but that's how I felt at the time. I mean, just before all of that happened, I actually ended up having telephone calls with a nurse, medical assistant on the NHS, and they do a service where if they feel that you are a risk to yourself, not to other people, to yourself, they will phone you every day, every other day, or once a week, depending on how serious they think it is, and they will do a small survey over the phone with you. And this survey is really quite daunting when you're on the phone to them because the questions are so invasive and they are so pointed. For example, it was, how do you feel today? On the scale of 1 to 10, how do you feel? Did you find it difficult getting dressed this morning? Things like that. And the ones that always really hit me were, have you felt the need to harm yourself? And have you had any suicidal thoughts? Have you had any thoughts where you didn't want to be here anymore? And I'm going to cry about this because my mum probably doesn't know, and if she watches this she's probably going to be in absolute tears. But on a few of those occasions, I never had suicidal thoughts, let me just put that out there. But on a few of those occasions, I did say, yes, I have felt like I haven't wanted to be here. I feel like I'm a drain on everybody. I feel like everybody is wasting their time with me because I'm not worth it. And to feel that way about yourself and have that little confidence and self-confidence in yourself as a person is horrible, and saying it out loud is horrible. I mean, you might think it in your head, you might think, I'm having a really bad day, I feel so sad today. I think it would be better if, I just wasn't here, and you may spend a day in bed. That's depression. That is depression. And it's not the worst. I did have a friend that was suffering from it when I was down in Hertfordshire, and when they were off their medication, they were bad. But having those thoughts, you kind of think everybody has thoughts like that every now and again. But when you actually say it out loud to someone over the phone who has asked you that question so pointedly, it hits you like a freight train. Bam! There is something else going on there. And yeah, I did feel like I was worthless, that I was useless, that I should be able to afford to pay my rent, that I should be able to afford to pay my bills, that I should be able to keep 2 people living in a very small property without any issues. And I think that is a big part of where my depression and my anxiety actually comes from. I did actually speak to quite a few different people. I remember speaking to my doctors about all of the different medications that they put me on, and for the life of me, I cannot remember any of the antidepressants that they put me on. The only one that I remember them putting me on is citalopram, I think, if I've said it right, which is an anti-anxiety tablet, and that is the only thing that worked for me. And after a month of taking that, the doctor said, how are you getting on with it? Have you had any side effects? As they did every time I went for an update. And this was the one which I said, yeah, I felt a bit ill, but my racing heart has stopped. And for me, not feeling as anxious as I used to, so for example, if the postman knocked on the door, I would be frantic, I would be trying to hide somewhere. I couldn't deal at all, could not deal. It got so bad. But for him saying, yes, or if that's the correct drug for you, then we'll leave you on that and we'll see how you are. It was a bit of a relief for me because they'd found what I needed. I mean, I ended up speaking to the consultant or the nurse over the phone about everything that was going on, and she said, looking at your points and how you're scoring with these tablets, I can tell you your depression is because of your anxiety. So your doctor's right, we'll keep you on this medication and hopefully things will get better. And do you know what? They did. So I will say that one of my worst days that I had was when I was alone in the apartment, and I just didn't know what to do with myself. Work was trying to get in touch with me, and even though I'd been signed off because they wanted to speak to me, and I couldn't speak to them. I found it so difficult to pick up a phone. I didn't want to answer the phone unless it was a family member or someone that I really trusted or wanted to talk to, which was hardly anyone. And I remember it getting to probably about midday, and I ended up getting out of bed and thinking, right, we need to beat this, Leah, come on. And I'm one of those people, I see myself as I hate saying things like this on camera because I know people do actually have this, but almost like I have a split personality. So one side is extremely emotional, not very tough, and would rather just hide away in a blanket and let everything blow over and just leave it and leave it and leave it and leave it and leave it. That is one side of me. And when my anxiety and depression hit the worst, that was the side that had really taken over. I did not want to speak to anyone. I didn't want to go out of the house. It was so bad. I even stopped eating. I just thought, you know, what is even the point? But then the other side of me is the willpower side. This is the strong, confident Leah that everybody knows, and the side that I show to most people. And on this particular day, that side had started to win out, and it was, come on, you need to get dressed, just put some clothes on, come on, get dressed. So I remember looking in my closet, and I actually told my friend this story the other day, and I think it quite hit home with what I'd mentioned and sort of how everything progressed during this period. I looked in my closet, and my nan, normally my nan, bless her, love her to pieces, if she has items of clothes that she doesn't want and she thinks might suit me, she tends to hand them down to me, and I love getting my nan's clothes because she has some absolutely beautiful clothes. And on this occasion I looked in my closet, and she had given me a red suit. So it had a red skirt with it and a red jacket. I never really wore the jacket, but the skirt I always loved. It was like bright red, it's absolutely beautiful. And I remember just going through my closet thinking, there's nothing to wear, there's no point in even getting dressed, I'll just go back to bed. But my eyes fixated on this red skirt, and I thought, do you know what, I'm going to put this red skirt on. And so I put this red skirt on, I had a black t-shirt on the top, and you know, it fit great. It wouldn't fit anymore, but it absolutely fit great. And I thought, okay, so now we need to put on some boots. So I put on some boots, and I ended up grabbing my keys and thinking, okay, so the next step is to go to the front door. Previous to this moment, I hadn't been out of the house for probably 2 to 3 weeks. I didn't want to see anyone, and every time I'd even tried to get out of the house, I'd got downstairs and my heart would be racing, absolutely racing, and I felt sick. And I'd have my shoes on, and I'd open the front door and I'd stop. I'd literally open the front door and I would stare out of the door. And it was almost like there was a barrier that you couldn't see that was there, and my legs wouldn't move, my feet wouldn't move, my entire body would not move. It was like I'd been concreted in on the step inside that door. And I almost panicked every single time I went to that door and I opened it. I would almost panic. And I'm not saying that I would panic, because I wouldn't panic. If anybody has had a panic attack, you know what a panic attack is, and I wouldn't panic to that extent. I have had panic attacks before, but no, I would almost, my heart would be racing, I'd get very, very anxious, I'd get really sweaty hands, but I'd be freezing cold, and I wouldn't be able to move, to a point where I would just manage to get the door and shut it, and I would either sit against the door or I would sit on the step and I would just cry. I would be in absolute fits of hysterical tears because there was something wrong with me, and I couldn't even get out the door to go grocery shopping. That was how bad I got. And thinking about the fact that I had gotten that bad still hits me really hard today. It is very, very emotional for me to actually talk about it and think about it, because it feels like that side of me was an entirely different person, and it was part of an entirely different life, which it was, because my life now is so much better than it ever was. But yes, going back to this particular day, I walked down the stairs and I unlocked the front door, And this brain was saying, you can't do it, you can't do it, you can't do it. My heart's there racing and it's horrible and I feel sick. It's like, you can't do it, just go back to bed. There's no point, nobody will want to see you, there's no point in going out there, just stay indoors. But then this side was saying, you can do it. The only thing that is stopping you is you. You can do this, Leah. Come on, you can do this. All it takes is one step. And I don't know how I managed to do it, but my foot went out the door. Onto the step, my foot went out of that door. And all of a sudden my alarm bells started to disappear. And my willpower side, I remember it saying, you've done it. You've done it. Go on, your next foot. Come on, you can do this. And I remember when I got out of the house and I locked the door and I had my bag and everything with me as well. And I thought, I'm going to go to the shop. I'm going to walk to the shop. And it was almost like I felt elated. I felt like a new person, almost, in a way. It was difficult, but looking back on it, I remember thinking, I've done it. And it was difficult. It was one step after another step, and to start with, it was slow. It was very slow going, and I got to the end of the drive because I lived set back from a road with a big shared drive. And I remember just looking at the traffic and thinking, this is every day. This is just normal every day. There's no one out there that wants to get me. There's no one out there that really cares what I'm doing. And I'm just going to walk to the shop. So that's what I did. I walked to the shop. Can't remember for the life of me what I walked to the shop for. But then I walked back and I got back and I remember I felt like a massive weight had been lifted off my shoulders. I mean, if you guys have ever suffered from anything like this, you'll know that it's almost like there's a giant black cloud just over your head and there's black horrible weight sitting on your shoulders and you feel like there's nothing that you can do about it. But that moment will always stick in my head of when my foot was outside that door. That will never ever go away from me. And I think now whenever I'm feeling sad or I'm upset, I do have a mass network around me that goes, right, okay, are you okay? We'll come and see you or pop over. And I think because I've managed to overcome that step, I can revert back to that point where my willpower side will go, you can do it. You've done this before. You can do it. You can nail this. Go on, Leah, you can do it. You know, it's not, I know a lot of people say, oh, you're just sad, you'll get over it. But until you have been in a situation where you've experienced how difficult it is to get out of that rut, how difficult it is to see yourself spiralling almost out of control and down into a hole, and feeling like there is nothing left in this world for you, then you'll never ever understand that it is not just being sad. It's a lot more than that, and there is a lot more to it than that. I remember before I was even diagnosed, okay, and this is going right back to when I had my larger apartment and me feeling sad about work, before I knew what the underlying thing was that was causing me to feel that way. I wrote a blog, and this blog was my way of getting everything out. For those that don't know, I am a writer. I'm a very creative person, so along with doing these videos and doing music production, I am also a writer. And that was one of my releases. It was to write. And I remember one of my blog posts, for someone to read it, it was scary. It was so dark. It was scary. And if I can find it, if it's still online and it's still available for anybody to see, then I will link it down below if you wanted to go and have a look and have a read to actually see how I felt at the time before I realised what the underlying issue was. But I have actually noted down some facts and figures for you guys regarding anxiety and depression, because this time of year there are a lot of people that will be hiding underneath their clothes, underneath a mask, and pretending like everything is okay. And I think this time of year it is really, really important to recognise that we are going to have friends and family out there that may need a little bit more support, especially with mental health issues like anxiety and depression. So measured over the last year, I have actually been on Mind, which is a UK charity which deals with mental health issues. And over the last year they have done some surveys, etc., so that we can actually see the amount of people that are affected in the UK by things like anxiety, depression, suicide, things like that, because it is very important to understand that anxiety and depression aren't just anxiety and depression. They lead to a whole host of other issues. For example, a lot of disabilities in the UK stem from anxiety and depression. Also suicides, a lot of suicides come from anxiety and depression as well. So the studies over the last year where they have surveyed people in private housing, so this is not including any hospitals, any shelters, any homeless people, 6 in 100 people are found to actually have anxiety, 3 in 100 people are seen to have depression, and 8 in 100 people have a mixed anxiety and depression, which is what I suffer with. So 21 in 100 people actually do have suicidal thoughts, and that's huge. That is absolutely huge. So 7 in 100 people have actually attempted suicide in the last year, and this is due to mental health. So you can see how it is such a huge deal to try and help those that do actually have mental health issues, and showing them that you can break through that barrier and you can have everything that you could ever possibly want, and you can get out of that rut. You can get out of that spiraling pit, because 7 in 100 people to have tried to commit suicide is massive, and then 7 in 100 people actually have self-harmed as well. So Mind is actually a mental health charity in the UK, and they do actually help people with all sorts of mental health issues, and they do have a hotline for people that feel they need immediate help. So those that do have suicidal thoughts or feel like they need to self-harm themselves, to actually release any pent-up energy, anxiety, depression that they actually feel inside. And what I'll do is I'll actually link Mind below for you. So if you did want to go and have a look at their website, or you do feel though you need help, the link is there for you. So it's also estimated that 1 in 6 people experience a mental health issue in a week. So it's 1 in 6 every week experience a mental health issue. Women are also more likely to experience a mental health issue than men, but even though women are twice as likely to suffer from a mental health issue than men, back in 2016 there are 5,668 suicides in the UK alone, and 75% of them were men. 75%! That is massive. That is such a surprise. That is something that I never ever expected. And I know November was the month of Movember, which is growing a moustache and raising funds for, you know, mental health issues and suicide prevention for men across the world, I would assume, because I know that the Americans do it as well. But this is massive. I never thought 75% of suicide attempts were from men. That's massive. But going into the younger generation, 20% of teens experience a mental health issue in any given year. And by the age of 14, 50% of mental health issues are already established. But by 24, 75% of mental health issues are already established. So it just goes to show that our younger generation actually needs help as well as the adults. But if you are a manager of a company or a business owner, this one is probably really going to, you know, hit home with you actually, because 12.7% of sickness days in a year are actually down to mental health issues. So it is a massive thing to be able to have a network or somewhere where you can go, or somewhere where the company actually says, do you know what, if you need the help, here you go. This is where you can go to have the help if you feel you need it. I know that there are some amazing companies out there that do have things where, you know, they can help you with how you're feeling and you can speak to them about absolutely anything and it's completely confidential. And I think that that is absolutely brilliant. I really think that there are more companies should be doing that to help raise awareness of it, because there are a lot of people out there that do actually suffer from mental health issues, and a lot of people out there are perfectly normal people like me. I mean, yes, I do have my days where I will wake up in the morning and I'll be in tears for no reason. I'm just in tears, and that is my anxiety, my depression coming back up and going, bam, there you go, you're going to have a bit of this today. But you know, I tend to try and surround myself with people that I love. I obviously talk to Dan about this when I do feel like things are getting on top of me. I'll sit down and go, Dan, I need to talk to you because I feel terrible. And the amount of times where I've sat down with him and I have cried on his shoulder because I feel like I'm not making my impact that I need to in the world. I'm not earning enough money. I'm not getting things done that I said I needed to get done. And I almost feel worthless. Yeah, and he's been the one that's gone, we're in this together. And I think, you know, just saying that has made me tear up because he's an absolutely fantastic person. And I've never really had that, you know. But I do think everybody needs support. Everyone that has suffered from something to do with anxiety and depression needs that support and needs that network. Like whether you're, you know, 8, 9 years old or whether you're 74, you know, just random numbers out of the air. But we do all need that network. We do all need that one person that you can go to and you can say, I need to spend 15 minutes crying on your shoulder because I feel absolutely terrible, and I don't need your reassurance, and I don't need you to say, oh, stop crying or stop being sad, or, you know, things are going to get better, everything's going to be okay, because it doesn't work. Literally, that we are in this together. You can be as sad as you want to be, you can be as upset as you want to be, you can cry for half an hour to an hour because you need to, but at the end of the day, I'm going to be here and we're going to get through this together. And I don't think there's enough of that in this world. I just want to let you guys know that I'm not making this video because I want to preach to you and say, I know all about this, you know, I'm suffering from it, I've done my research, I've got facts and figures for you guys, because that is definitely 100% not what I'm about. All I want to do is just share a bit of my story, and by saying a bit, there's going to be a lot more of this story coming sort of in the next 6 to 12 months, depending on how things go. Sort of in the background, I've got some things going on. As soon as that's done, I'll be more comfortable talking to you guys about a lot more, and this video may make a little bit more sense. But I feel like everybody deals with what they go through in a very different way, and I wanted to share my story because there may be someone out there who felt exactly the same way as me, who wants to know, look, Leah, how did you get over it? And there are going to be people out there that will watch this video and will go, what? You have been diagnosed with anxiety and depression? I never knew that. Because you're always so bubbly and you're always happy and you've always got this great smile on your face and you light up the room when you walk in, which I have been told every now and again that sometimes, you know, it's great when I walk into a room because everything just opens up and it goes really light and airy. But even though people tell me that, there are times when I put on that face. That is a completely different me. I'm two different people. So when I'm out in a social situation and I need to be funny, witty, slightly professional and, you know, a people person, that is exactly who I am. Because that's who I need to be in that situation. If I'm at home and I'm with Dan and I feel terrible, you know what, my hair goes up, or you know, it's a little bit greasy and I don't bother going in the shower till the evening because I can't be bothered, and I've got my PJs on, and you know, I feel terrible, I look terrible, I don't care, I'll stay in bed, whatever. I'm lazy, you know, I'm sitting there thinking all the worst things in the world, and you know, that's me. Sometimes I feel like I am so happy and on top of the world and I can accomplish anything, but then other days I feel like, why do I even bother? Why am I even here? But that is where the foot out of the door comes from, because I have managed that other side of my brain kicks in and goes, just sit, have a conversation, and you'll be okay. Find someone and have that conversation with, or put on something that's going to make you cry and get it out of your system. It's one of those, you now know how to deal with what you've been through and what you are going through. And I think for a lot of people who do suffer from anxiety, depression or other mental health issues, finding that trigger and finding that thing that will help just to pull you out is really, really key. And for anyone that hasn't found that, I really do hope that you do find it, because for me right now, I'm on no medication at all. No medication. I've not been on medication since 2016, 2019 now. So it's 3 years clean of medication, because I've found my trigger. And I know that sometimes I am going to need, you know, like 12 hours just to feel a bit crap, you know, just to feel like I don't really want to get up and do anything. And I have Dan there, and he's like, it's okay. You know, you can be like that. And I think having that someone to say to you, you're allowed that day. Be upset. Feel like you don't want to be here, but remember that I'm here. Remember that people that you love are here, and we are here to support you the entire time. And that foot out the door moment, that is everything that I need to pull me back and to go, you're okay. You're okay, you can deal with this. You're fine, you can get through it, and tomorrow is going to be a better day. But yes, I do know that this was a bit of a different video, a bit more of a serious video, but I do want to thank you guys for sticking with me all the way through this video and for letting me voice my story and telling you what I've been through and how I managed to overcome it. Even though it's not completely gone, I now know how I deal with things. So hopefully, if you are someone who suffers from this kind of thing, you can find that trigger that can just bring you back and bring you out of that darkness that is so difficult to get out of. But if you did want any links or any statistics or any facts or figures, I'm going to put everything in the description down below for you, including the link to Mind as well. Mind is an absolutely brilliant charity. They've got a lot of information on a lot of things, and if you feel like you do need to speak to them, there is a contact detail down below as well. But thank you again so much for watching, and I will see you in the next video. Bye!